It's coming your way, The Jungle Book. It's the unforgettable story of the boy who was raised by wolves, befriended by a bear, only to end up in the wildest adventure of all.
Look out!
This summer, you're invited to look out for the most fighting, biting, swinging, flinging jungle tale ever.
Somebody do something with that kid.
And it's only at a theater near you. Walt Disney's classic, The Jungle Book, rated G. Now playing at a theater near you.
Welcome, all you man cubs, to Cinemarcade. This is the podcast about movies, video games, and the sparks that fly when those two worlds collide. My name is King of the Jungle, Steve Guntley, and today we are talking about 1967's The Jungle Book from a little guy that nobody believed in named Walt Disney. What a clown. Who knows who that guy is? That's a facetious bit that's going nowhere. Who else is with me today?
I'm a frozen severed head.
Is his head severed?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, Walt Disney's head has been cryogenically frozen, like something off of Futurama.
I just assumed you would have done his whole body.
No, at the time, the technology, and how much is the rest of the body actually worth?
There's an entire documentary on it on YouTube.
Market.
It's called The Many Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head.
Ooh,
He's under Disney World right now.
There are a lot of theories. I've heard
Many have
the
said
Denver
Pirates of the
Airport.
Caribbean.
Yeah,
And the name of this severed head is J-Ban.
Yes, I was hoping we would circle around to it, but I
it's
trusted
not Madame
you.
Leota.
Who else is here with us?
Hi, I'm Simba, and I think I might be in the wrong place. But I also go by Justin sometimes.
Sometimes. But usually, people don't know behind the scenes, we usually call him Simba. And it's weird. Yeah, it's weird and alarming.
Why is it weird?
We have a special guest joining us today.
And I am the unnamed girl that's just there to bat eyelashes and annoy parents at the end of the movie.
Yes, exactly. That is your whole name.
I am the unnamed sexual awakening for
Poor Mowgli.
puberty man cub.
Oh, well, I am. Okay. All right.
My name is Hannah. It's nice
Yes.
to be
Hi,
here.
Hannah. Welcome.
Hi.
Welcome. Like I said, today we are back in Disney territory. We are talking about The Jungle Book from 1967. This was directed by Wolfgang Reitherman, written by Larry Clemens, Ralph Wright, Ken Anderson, and Vance Gary. And this stars Phil Harris, Sebastian Cabot, Louis Prima, George Sanders, Sterling Holloway, J. Pat O'Malley, Clint Howard, and Bruce Reitherman. Yeah, so, one of the many Disney movies that we are going to be talking about on this show. This one is kind of unique because they don't usually make video games for movies that predate video games. And this is kind of one of those rare exceptions where they actually went back and did it. We'll get to talking about the game in a little bit, but we have to get into this movie. It's a pretty monumental movie for Disney in a lot of ways. Still to this day, one of their 5 biggest hits. Mm-hmm. If you adjust for inflation, it is, I believe, the 5th highest grossing Disney film of all time. Already the fidget spinners are a-flying around here. Yeah, so worth something like $700 million at the box office, which is pretty crazy. This is also noteworthy because it is the last film that Walt Disney ever worked on. He died and had his head severed in 1966. And where do we think it is now? It's in NORAD, I believe.
Now,
yeah. I want them to do like a flat Stanley with Walt Disney's head. Like, he's sending it around to like elementary school kids and they take a picture of it and they're in front of a map.
So
yeah, I think we should do
my
that.
question, right? Was it an open casket funeral?
I wasn't there. I had a thing.
Oh, I mean, I figured you would be alive back then.
I had a thing that weekend. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Gotcha.
I was covering
No,
up the
what
JFK
they did is they
assassination.
had an animatronic of Walt Disney from The Great Adventures of President Lincoln.
There it is.
They've added Frederick Douglass to it now.
Oh, that's good.
Apparently.
Okay.
But that's my bet. They made an animatronic of Walt Disney for the casket, but they slithered away the other body with the severed head on the trains in his backyard that he had built.
There we go.
So how soon did they freeze his head?
I don't know how long it takes. I don't know. I'm not there up to date on the technology.
I mean, I feel like the longer you go between, death and freeze is like bad.
Yeah, I would think so, but I'm not.
I've
Walt
never
Disney.
frozen heads. So.
The man's an Imagineer. He can figure this all out. He's also like. I wish more celebrities were batshit crazy in the way that Walt Disney was.
Like Nicolas Cage having his own pyramid in
Nicolas Cage is batshit crazy in less bad ways than Walt Disney kind of was.
I did not say that Nicolas Cage was batshit crazy.
Okay.
I just said that he has a tomb in New Orleans that's shaped like a pyramid, and I am not casting aspersions on it. Yeah. I think it's fly.
It's great.
I mean,
it's great.
I personally enjoy Nick Cage, especially lately when he clearly is just living life.
Absolutely. I mean, I was more thinking along the lines of Barbara Streisand, who has a mall in her basement. She built her own private mall under her house so that she could simulate the act of shopping because she's too famous to go shopping in real life.
People work down there?
That's what I've always been wondering.
Closet.
Yeah, it's just like this, but there are storefronts and there are things down there. So like that's the right kind of crazy. I think if you're going to have a shitload of money and be crazy, that's the right kind of thing to do.
I do miss the eccentricities. I know there's a lot of like everyone's like, let's go to the moon or let's go to the Mars. But like,
let's go to the Mars.
Let's go to the Mars.
Let's do it.
The Mars factory.
Wouldn't it be really funny if both David Bowie and Elton John had to answer for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk's desire for a space exploration?
Yeah. They're like, damn it. Oh, well, I was just asking if there was life on Mars. How was that perfect David Bowie impression? It was really good, right?
That was a stunning
It
David
is
Bowie.
I, David Bowie, back from the dead.
That's not fair. You try again. I know you've got a David Bowie in you.
Oh, I definitely have. A David Bowie.
Okay, speaking of superstars, though, just to bring
jazz. Okay, sorry.
while David Bowie would be awesome, I will say, just to tie it back to the movie, if only they could have gotten the actual Beatles for the Vultures.
Yeah.
Was there an attempt?
Yes, they actually wanted the Vultures for the original film, which is why they're all modeled in the haircuts based off of the Beatles for every individual Vulture.
Right, they were that was definitely a reference. I wasn't sure if they were actually trying to do, because we're going on so many tangents already, but the Beatles were already reluctant to do animation. They did a Yellow Submarine, didn't want to do it, then got involved at the very end of it. But like, yeah, so I would understand.
Which was the year after, where was
At
68.
67, they're at the height of their powers too, so they probably,
No, they didn't need to be involved in the children's production. But okay, so this is something that struck me. This is the first time I noticed the name of the voice of Mowgli is the director's son.
It's
so
Bruce Reitherman,
this is one area where nepotism worked out.
This is the one area.
Yes, the one area where nepotism has happened.
I hate nepotism, but sometimes these nepo babies, like they're pretty good.
It turns
He's
out
not the worst
I've been
actor.
enjoying watching.
He was a genuine kid.
I've really been
working on his
enjoying
dad's film.
watching Dakota Johnson pretend she doesn't hate the new Spider-Man thing that she's in. Like, that's been really fun.
It
She's a
turns
nepo
out
baby.
that if you grow up rich and can spend your time doing whatever you want with resources to get training, you can be good at things.
Yeah, but there are a lot of wastrel nepo babies.
Oh, for sure.
I'm just saying
100%.
that it's nice to see. I like Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke's daughter.
Yeah.
I feel like she's a really fun actress.
Yeah.
She's
distinctive looking, yeah.
was in Stranger Things, right?
Yeah, she was in Stranger Things. And I don't. It's just really funny. I've been a stand-up I've been listening to this week is Jack Whitehall.
Oh, yeah.
And he's a huge nepo baby of his father, who was like the agent for Dame Judi Dench and all of these really famous people. And it's just like, I'm like, okay, you are a nepo baby, but I'm still enjoying some of what you do.
Yeah. Hey, sometimes they do. And I think, in this case, I think the voice acting it works because for nothing else, like, I don't think they were really particularly interested in being realistic when they cast kids back in the 60s, like, or being the kids being actors necessarily. They just need to be kind of naturalistic. And I think that's the vocal performance here.
Plus, the most amount of time he's probably spent with his dad. Animation, you're in the studio for 14 hours a day at the bare minimum. And this was Wolf Reitherman's one of his first projects being a director for the Disney company.
I believe,
so this is likely their greater bonding experience of take your kid to work day, and instead, you want to be on a movie with me, son?
How
We can
old
spend
was
more
the
time
kid?
together.
I think he was like 10 or 12.
He had to be at
somewhere in there.
least around 11 or 12. Mowgli is supposed to be 10 because 10 years of
Well,
reign have come and gone, at
and-
least in the book and in the adaptation.
And like if we're aging
I
it
always
properly,
felt like he was a little bit younger than 10.
well, if it gives you some context, the original actor they had cast to play Mowgli went through puberty while they were setting
they
up
were in production.
His voice started cracking, so they had to replace him. So that's about the age.
Which is the same thing that happened for The Sword and the Stone with their actor, but they kept in the puberty, which is why you hear his different voices in varying
I love
scenes.
The Sword and the Stone.
I mean,
it holds up.
The first project
This-
of the Sherman Brothers, and now they're back here with Disney again.
Yeah, and of Bill Peet, who was the principal animator on this project when it got started. And when this movie was being developed, this was going to be like a straightforward, somber adaptation of the Jungle Book. They wanted something a little bit more in the tone of like Bambi or something kind of naturalistic like that.
And you do see Bambi in the film. You see Bambi's mom,
Yeah. And like...
in which she lives.
Yeah, she lives this time. She gets her revenge. But like eventually they added the character of Baloo. Well, they didn't add the character. The character's in the book, but they tweaked the character of Baloo to be kind of like the fun-loving party bear, just to like lighten the mood a
Rather
little
than
bit.
the strict professor that he is in the original.
And Disney liked that so much that he's just like, all right, I want to lighten the entire thing. Bill Peet quit the film in protest, and so they brought in the new directors and the new writers to kind of punch it up. And basically Walt Disney said, ignore the book. This is just kind of a general outline of what this story is going to be. We want to adapt it as loosely and as goofily as we can. And that's what they did. And honestly, I think it's better off for it. I have not read the original book, but a couple of y'all read this before, right?
Yes. Okay. So this is going to be my. Hi, this is Hannah again. I'm taking over, and I apologize.
I'm putting a timer on you.
Oh, great. Okay, so for the people who've never heard of Rudyard Kipling was born and raised in India up until around the age of 6 and 7, in which he did go to England and was raised in boarding school. And for those of you who have heard the phrase white man's burden, congratulations, now you know where it's from. This is one of Rudyard Kipling's most infamous poems on the concept of, in many ways, British imperialism in many of his works. Many of them
I'm going to skip you ahead past Rudyard Kipling's biography.
Okay, we're skipping the biography.
We are
We
gonna
only have so
lose
much time.
all time.
Point being that Kipling, British imperialism. So the original book of Mowgli is actually in two parts. So there's the first part in which Mowgli grows up in the jungle. He loves the jungle. He meets Baloo. He meets Bagheera. He meets friends. But in discovering that he can control fire, which he does make to protect himself from Shere Khan, it is not an act of divine lightning.
Right.
He realizes, oh fuck, I'm screwed. I'm ruining the lives of everyone around. I have to leave. Goes to the man village on his own. And in part 2, he grows up into a man, as foretold, and turns his back on the jungle. The message being that a Briton in India, once he goes to Britain, will not remember the plights of his youth and of India, and thus forget it. And this is man's responsibility, that he will be negligent.
And Disney's approach to that theme is, let's have monkeys playing the trumpet.
Yes.
Like that was that
Let
was
us
like
get
he
Louis
heard all
Prima
that and he's like,
and
all right,
trumpets.
let's have swing music and dancing and like a goofy weird beatnik bear and like just kind of like discard all of that interesting
Which
context.
I
Like,
think if you really think about it, is exactly what the book was about.
Yeah.
Walt Disney just did it.
Yeah. And so, like, yeah, they just kind of took it over. And, like, this is one of the first Disney movies where they were casting, like, recognizable name voice actors. Like, we don't really know who they are now, but back in the day, like, Phil Harris was a popular stand-up comedian who was on TV a lot. Like, he's and that's the other thing that this one is doing, is basically letting the voice actors keep their personas going with these characters. Like they made Baloo act more like Phil Harris. They made Shere Khan act more like George Saunders, you know, just because they were playing up the fact that they had some names in the film. which is got, that it seems like a minor thing now because we've all grown up in like the era of like, celebrity driven cartoon movies, but that was new.
Back even to like Snow White, they wanted somebody so unknown that they basically scuppered her career after she became Snow White.
Exactly.
For copyright
yeah.
for Angelina Castellini,
Yeah, and they used to do that. Every once in a while they would throw a bone to like one of their teen stars like Bobby Driscoll and Peter Pan, but then they most of the time
Catherine Beaumont did her too for Alice and for Wendy.
That's
back
right.
to back.
Yeah, see, so once in a while they would do that as like a cross promotion thing with a Disney TV show, but
And then Peggy Lee for Lady and the Tramp because Peggy Lee and Sonny Burke did all the songs for the movie, so she's playing 4 roles in that entire film.
Yeah.
So if you're
yeah.
going to pay for Peggy Lee, you're going to get Peggy Lee. And this was also during the time of the big music strike.
Yeah.
So now that we're by the 1960s, I agree with you. This is the age of starting to look for new voice casting. A couple years later, we would have The Rescuers with Bob Newhart and Zsa Zsa Gabor, which would have been huge names for pulling in the box office.
Yeah. I mean, they absolutely would. And this one did dominate at the box office in a big way. And it was critically acclaimed. And I was reading, actually, so I just read this book about the Oscars, and I didn't know that Gregory Peck was the president of the Academy for a number of years and wound up being a really influential and like progressive Academy president. And he was pushing really hard for The Jungle Book to get a Best Picture nomination. He loved it so much that he really wanted to see that happen. It would have been the first animated film to ever get there. And it got edged out by Dr. Dolittle, the 1967 like Rex Harrison Dr.
Rex
Dolittle,
Harrison?
which was like
Ouch.
it was a critical and commercial bomb at the time. Like everybody hated that movie, but Fox basically wined and dined the Academy members. Yeah.
I was going into some trepidation watching The Jungle Book, and because like you read and you watch things as children, like I love the Dr. Dolittle series, and so but I'm so scared of revisiting things from my childhood because I'm like, how racist is this going to be? How sexist is this going to be?
Yeah,
not great.
And it was so interesting. I think I don't know how Dr. Dolittle fares, but I just remember really loving Dr. Dolittle. And the thing about The Jungle Book is like I feel, because like again, like this is the perspective of a like so like I felt like there was a bit of a pain point when watching The Jungle Book, but it wasn't an overwhelming pain point like when you're watching some of other things from your childhood or even from the 80s, like so I'm like, I was glad that that watching it wasn't terribly obvious, but still I'm glad that Disney put in the note about the changing characterizations, because there's definitely like, I don't know, in 1967 it was just a I don't know.
It is interesting that they had the disclaimer. If you watch this on Disney Plus, they do put the cultural sensitivity disclaimer in front of it. And
that's interesting.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
one
they do.
This one is not. I mean, look, I'm not really in the manner of speaking. I will say, in credit of this movie, it does not trade in any Indian stereotypes at all. Like, as near as I can tell, right? Like, Mowgli is not he doesn't depict
He's
any
just a
kind
kid.
of, because
there's
it wouldn't
no
make sense
ethnic
for him
background
to.
for him or any of the characters.
And he grew up out of society.
I completely missed the fact that it was technically in India.
Yeah.
Because if you don't say it, it could have taken place in either of the African jungles or wherever. Like, it could have been in multiple places, even the South America.
Yeah. Like,
I don't know about where the animals are usually at, but
right. I mean,
You can tell to a degree based off the animal design, because there are differences between Indian elephants and African elephants, with Indian elephants having smaller ears, more of a pointed chest.
Yeah, you
versus
never would have
African.
noticed. You could put them
so you
next
see
to
those.
each
You also
other,
see
and I
some of the
wouldn't know.
you also see some of the architecture. Shere Khan is modeled more off of a Bengal tiger, so there is some design in terms of the animals. But you're right, if it's not something you think about as a kid who totally had a collection of National Geographic magazines.
The closest I got was playing Zoo Tycoon. So
Oh, there you go. Yes.
that was my animal education.
The problem, I think, with this characterization is, of course, that it is a Indian person being played by a white child who is just giving it totally flat, like a American affect, just like any like American child, but it's being depicted. So like that's not great. And some of the other depictions haven't really aged super well, but this has aged a lot better than a lot of other stuff in Disney's early catalog. You know,
there's just like an homage to what was already old at the time, which is like the minstrel show.
Yeah.
And like so we don't have to do anything like this when we watch this movie, but like Christian had to talk to his nephew about like depictions.
Yeah.
And so like it's definitely like there, we even if like I wouldn't have seen it as top of mind.
Yeah. I mean, I will say as a child, I was not aware of any kind of discrepancy with this movie at all, even when I was aware of it in other movies. Like I watched Dumbo at the time and was aware that some of those depictions weren't like sensitive, you know, like I'm sure my mom educated me on it
Lady
at
and
some
the
point,
Tramp
but, like,
is just like, ouch.
Lady and the Tramp. Yeah, my parents wouldn't let me watch
God, what
that
happens in
movie
Lady and the
for that
Tramp?
reason. There are some really bad like Asian stereotype characters.
It's the science. But if you take that scene out,
Yeah.
are there still one or two scenes? Yes, particularly in the Home Sweet Home Pound homage. But part of the film for Lady and the Tramp was meant to be as a film and not as the original book, to symbolize immigration as a melting pot using dogs.
Right.
So that goes into the concept of what is loving satire.
But it was
in
also
terms
still
of anthropomorphism. But
it was still an
it's
era of like
still
Charlie
an
Chan
era
of like
that, and post-Second War, which there was already political upheaval regarding immigration, especially from China at this time, which in 1957, when Lady and the Tramp came out, was poor. And with 1967, this is right after the peak of the civil rights era.
Yeah.
So they were going to originally cast Louis Armstrong and then instead got Louis Prima, who is Italian and a prominent jazz artist. And true to the traditions, they even keep the Louis Prima Jazz Funeral Brigade, which is common for jazz practices in New Orleans. So there are elements of fun and improvisation. Many of the sequences that were animated for the I Want to Be Like You song were from the Louis Prima recordings that they did of the musicians.
I'm a swing dancer. They did have actual swing dancing moves.
They did.
Yeah,
they
yeah.
did.
No,
they
they
did.
actually-
They had the Lindy Hop. It was great.
I mean, you know, I think this is entering an era when Disney animation is getting cheaper and like it's not quite the
Unfinished sketch
the
lines.
reuse of the ka thing of the caught. It was so funny, like his tail getting caught and then him being all bent and stuff, and
With
like,
the
he
pipe
just
organ
reused
into
it.
the squeak
Yeah.
tire, and then they reused even the same sound effects.
They use the same sound effect, and then they start reusing the same exact characters and animations in movies after this. Like the Robin Hood, like the Baloo and Little John animations are identical. The snake in that and Ka are identical. Even like the King Richard or King John, Prince John, like where it's a different characterization, but it is still kind of like an erudite British like whiny guy.
And
you know,
both
like,
of them were helped spearheaded by Milk Call for some of the animations.
Right.
The Milk Call head jiggle to move the head in a 360 angle while talking was a flex of Milk Call as an animator. And for Shere Khan, I will say George Sanders and Milk Call as a head animator give such a quiet dignity to this villain role, which we don't see in many of the villains prior. There is a stillness, and he rarely, if ever, gets mad. The only time is when he attacks Baloo, and that is when he snaps. In previous films with villains for Disney films, such as Maleficent, for example, or even Queen Grimhilda, which is she's named the evil queen in Snow White is named. It's Grimhilda, apparently. We get to see a villain who is a true hunter.
Yeah.
He's simply stalking. We don't even see him until over the halfway mark in the film, not even until the last third minute.
Yeah.
They just build him up of Shere Khan is coming.
I thought it was really interesting how they use British voices to nod that this was India, but there's like some commentary on colonialism and imperialism.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting to have. I'm glad they had Shere Khan be a British person.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're just like, because he's so menacing. But then you have the elephant, Colonel Hottie.
Yeah.
Again, which is like the British colonial powers being bumbling idiots.
Yeah.
But it's it was an interesting choice that the Floridian animators chose to do.
And it was intentional because the other big characters all do kind of come across as American. I think Sebastian Cabot's got kind of like a transatlantic sort of accent as Bagheera, but like, yeah.
I love Bagheera.
Bagheera is so great.
I feel like that's one of the things that I was most looking forward to this on the rewatch was watching Bagheera, because Bagheera is such a perfect combination of put upon adults.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to care about this child, but I clearly care about this child.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The amount of times he said, okay, that's it. You're on your own. But the minute he hears he's in trouble, if I shouldn't have left him, let me go back, sees that he's with Baloo, and a more incompetent adult than me. I'm going to see how this plays out.
Yeah. He's got the smugness. Yeah.
Yeah, he even seemed like at first he was like, no, he has to come with me. And then he's like, all right, sure. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, why not?
I already know what direction it's going to go, but...
The line that follows the sequence after the monkeys, it happened. It took longer than I thought, but it happened. Baloo screwed up. Let me go check on this. Now, where is Mowgli?
But I mean, Baloo really is the character that makes this movie pop, I think. Like the whole film is kind of built around his vibe.
Necessities.
Oh, come on.
Such a bop. I'm
It's
learning
great.
the piano and I've been practicing. Like I can play it on slower tempos, but I can't play it at actual tempo yet.
Yeah.
And it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's just such a delight to play. And the song, it's a 57-year-old movie and the song still bops.
Yeah, it's still fun.
And I think you get good character growth from him too, because at first, like, you can tell that he's still the same person, the same creature, but then, like, you can see him having much more compassion, and the moment where he kind of breaks down and says to Mowgli, like, look, you have to go back. Like, you can see, like, there was a lot of emotion there that you probably weren't expecting from the character that you meet at the beginning.
Right.
When you're like, oh, okay, this seems to be just like a carefree bear. And then it's like, oh, no, this bear cares a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, the bear instantly cares. He's the first one in the line of fire towards Shere Khan, which is also a big change of negligence, which is something he's called out on early in the movie with the monkeys, but when it comes to Shere Khan, he's the first one there. Moreover, what I love about that scene is just Bagheera and Baloo talking while Mowgli is asleep, but Baloo puts him to bed. You see the tenderness in the gesture. And the following conversation is a moment in animation where you get to see them act. You get to see everything in the film act of Mowgli has to go back. He won't listen to me. You have to do this. Because you need to think about someone other than yourself because you want him alive.
Yeah, Baloo has really like expressive body language in that scene.
Yeah.
Like he's rubbing his neck and he's just like he's clearly feeling miserable.
The
and
gesture under the net.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of good. The voice lines were good. You could feel it. You could see it. It was solid bit.
And great voice acting. And again, he's just like, from a modern perspective, you just feel like he's a John Goodman type of character.
Yeah. Which of course he would go on to be John Goodman in the there's a
sequel.
very long delayed sequel that came out in like 2003.
2002,
Yeah, somewhere around there,
2003.
and it's John Goodman and Haley Joel Osment as Baloo and Mowgli. This one's been remade quite a bit actually. So there's the 1994 version, the live action one with Jason Scott Lee, which I loved as a kid. I haven't seen it in years, but I've been kind of wanting to revisit that.
I remember loving that as a kid as well, and I don't know if it holds up.
Well, it's a Stephen Sommers film who did The Mummy and like really fun,
Really?
entertaining like bad movies like that. So I feel like it might be fun.
Mummy is not a bad movie.
Mummy is a lot of fun. It's a good bad movie. Come on,
It is not a good
okay.
bad.
It's not all right.
Let us not get distracted because
We're not
we
getting
would be
distracted.
here all
because we will
day.
throw
And
down.
also
I'm
because-
sorry, I besmirched the Mummy in front of a bisexual person. I know that's trial by death.
I still haven't seen
If
this.
I'm not mistaken, listen, we're going to have this conversation at a later date.
We are gonna.
So
have
we can
this.
save it for then.
We're gonna need to keep ice packs on hand for shave hands.
Delayed gratification.
Yeah.
We have 3 of those movies to go through, so yeah, you're gonna be in trouble.
And we've already done one.
yeah.
No, that wasn't. No,
That's not part of it.
Oh, right.
That was the Tom Cruise.
Well, yeah,
one.
I know. That's why I said, like,
Oh no, we got 4. There's a Scorpion King game too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we gotta do that. That counts.
It's gonna
Okay,
be.
Scorpion King is back.
Look,
Scorpion King is
I
bad.
just know the effect shots for The Rock, and yeah, they were bad.
Oh boy. Okay, we'll have so much to get into with that.
We'll get
but-
there.
We'll get there. I do want to
yeah,
give
no.
one more shout out though to prominent voice actor Sterling Holloway.
Oh yeah, he's Ka the Snake.
He's Ka
Sounds
the Snake.
exactly like Scarlett Johansson, which is what I really like about him. Most
we
people
always
say that.
We always would. But with Sterling Holloway, it's nice to see, even with these rise of new stars or prominent actors, Disney is still giving homage to some of its longer time voice actors.
Oh,
Sterling
yeah.
Holloway has been there since Dumbo, so
Yeah.
a good 20 years with the company.
Yeah.
Is the Stork. He came back for Lambert the Sheepish Lion for a couple of other shorts. He did the Cheshire Cat for
Alice in Wonderland.
Alice in
yeah.
Wonderland, and then would do, of course, Winnie the Pooh, which is the voice we all know, and eventually would become Jim Cummings.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. See, I mean, yeah.
Are we gonna do Alice in Wonderland?
We are.
Oh, that's gonna be
Bring me back.
interesting.
We're talking Mary Blair.
It's going to be rough because we're well. That's the thing. We're going to do both. We have to do the 1950 original animated one, and we have to do the Tim Burton one.
Do we have to do the Tim Burton
One of them is like I really love it, and then another one is one of the worst films I've ever seen in my life. And guess which one is which? Yeah,
Hey,
we'll find out.
I
Yeah.
like how sometimes we can disagree and sometimes we agree.
You're on board on that one.
It'll be
You're on board with me with
interesting
that?
to
Yeah.
see. Yeah.
I have a hard time imagining people defending that movie, but we'll get to it in time.
I have a real problem with the costume design.
Yeah. No, it's so self-indulgent. Anyway, we'll get to it. But
Well, at least the bears
So many
aren't
conversations to
self-indulgent.
have later.
The only thing that's self-indulgent in the Jungle Book, or at least looking back on it, is the ending.
Oh, yeah.
which is
Yeah.
a personal for me, only because she doesn't have a name. It's just the girl, and that's okay. That's totally fine. She's just there.
She gets a
But
name.
this actually sparked a huge controversy with parents in at the end of films, or at least looking back on some of these older films with Disney. I'm going to use the girl's name in the sequel, which is Shanti.
Mm-hmm.
So Shanti has been given multiple ages of criticism for the come hither sex stare that she gives Mowgli, which Baloo calls out on. She did that on purpose. Obviously, says Bagheera, which is one of the better jokes in the movie. But the concept of this female character is meant to be a siren as the reason that Mowgli goes back to the Van Village. So it's not Bagheera, it's not Baloo, the characters that we've been with the whole time. It's not even Mowgli himself recognizing he needs to see the sacrifice his friends have made and recognize that the jungle is dangerous, having been nearly eaten in the first 10 minutes, trampled by elephants, destroyed by Shere Khan, struck by lightning. None of this affects him, except
Presumably he would have been
Girl.
eaten by Shere Khan as well. But yeah.
True.
Yeah, no, girl is...
Girl, I've never seen one before.
How? Yeah.
I mean, you have to admire how far Disney has come because, like, here we have a movie about preteen puberty at the end that caused like an uproar with parents, and then just last year we had Turning Red, which is a movie that is expressly about menstruation, and I didn't
it's
hear
beautiful.
anybody complain about it. Like, that's great. I think that's
Was
actual
this a
genuine
Disney
progress.
film?
Yeah, Turning Red is awesome.
Pixar,
Yeah.
it's great. It's
Yeah.
by the same director who made Bao, which was the short right before
I
Incredibles
love
2.
Bao.
That was really
The-
good. Yeah.
I'm not a big Pixar person, mostly just because I haven't seen many of them.
Oh yeah, Turning Red is I recommend it. Yeah,
Fully
that's-
under the radar. Like, if you said a name of a Pixar movie, I probably am aware of it existing.
Pixar is
This was one I
doing,
didn't know.
Theatrical releases of Turning Red, Luca, and
Soul.
Soul.
Yeah.
Are they?
And coming up, I think starting in March, I want to say. And
think so.
I haven't seen Turning Red, and I love Luca.
I haven't seen any
I've
of
seen
them.
Luca 5 times. I'm crazy about
Luca
Luca.
is
And that's what I need to
delightful.
see again. I watched it once and like didn't really retain much of it. I liked it.
If
but,
you're a
like,
fan
yeah.
of Porco Rosso or many of the
Yeah.
Studio Ghibli films
Yeah.
or Kiki's Delivery
Wait,
Service,
Yeah.
which
Luca
one's-
is of a similar vibe.
Which one's Luca?
It's
Luca
the
is
Italian
about the-
boy who turns into a sea monster.
Okay,
Yeah,
no,
and there's
definitely haven't
very
seen
like,
it.
and there's definitely lovely queer vibes. but,
Yes.
like that they. I feel like that Luca is one of the few shows that actually show queer pre-adolescent love in a genuine way, because like it's not like you guys are macking on each other, it's just like you're obsessed with each other. And
New best friend. Why
Yeah.
is my new best friend needing another new best friend? I'm the best friend.
I'm the best friend.
Yeah.
It truly is honest jealousy, and that I think leads me to why the Jungle Book, as an adult, I enjoy it. As a kid, I thought it was fun, but looking back and watching this for the first time, and not even scene by scene as I've done for some of my research, but as a full film, it is a movie about parenting.
Sure. Yeah.
And as an older adult, I find it more relatable looking at Baloo and Bagheera simply trying to help Mowgli do what's best for the kid.
They do kind of settle onto almost a 3 men and a baby dynamic.
They
except,
do.
there's only two, and neither of them are men, and the baby is a man. But otherwise,
Well, they did ask, "Hey,
Nailed it.
would you wouldn't
Yeah.
marry a panther, would you?"
Yeah.
They asked. There was a proposal.
Yeah, there's a
That's
There
true.
was a proposal.
Yeah. I mean, no, I still find this movie so like
I would stand
painless
the
and
ship.
sweet and just easy to watch.
So I really adore this movie, but I do feel like it's front loaded. I feel
yeah.
like the first half is just
Yeah.
like an absolute classic. I
Yeah.
feel like the second half is just like
Meandering
It's a little
until we
meander-
get to
Well,
Shere
the
Khan.
vulture, like the set pieces were so prominent.
Yeah.
And then the vultures were just sort of like.
They didn't really land this time. I loved them as a kid just because I used to like to do the, oh no, don't start that again. Like I just used to say that all the time. To
My brother and I would do that in the car.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I appreciated any opportunity to become more annoying, which I still look for.
Points
in
for
my
George
life.
Sanders, though.
Yeah.
hitting the low notes.
Was that him singing?
Yes, it
Oh wow,
was.
yeah, that's pretty good.
He had a wonderful growl.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think I could do that.
No, I certainly can't.
No, can't even get close. But no, I find this movie just like effortless and charming and fun. Like you run a risk when you make. Oh yeah.
So one of the things that I'm just like every time I watch one of these older Disney movies, I'm just arrested by how beautiful the animation is.
Oh, the
and I
backgrounds
was
are stunning.
Constantly, like I was just looking at them, and I was just like, this is so stunning. And the characterization of the characters in the animation is just so lively and beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't know, like I was mentioning Luca and a lot of other modern animation, and they're good, but they just seem to lack the characterization of early animation, and that
Yeah.
I really do miss.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not cell animation, and fell off the train by 1994 for some companies. 1997, 98. Don Bluth is one of the last for cell animation, and that was with Pebble and the Penguin.
Oh,
so
yeah.
right here around this time in 1967, we're also seeing the beauty of not only Xeroxing, which they did with 101 Dalmatians, and you see this rough sketch style, the unfinished lines. This is a film that when you look at it, you know it was hand drawn.
Yeah.
And that is an imperfection, a messiness that I miss about animation.
Oh,
that
absolutely.
I don't see anymore.
Yeah, no, I always loved seeing the little scritches or the repeated animations or things like that. It made me feel clever as an annoying little kid, and I was always looking for ways to be more annoying. But also just like, there is a little bit more care and craft that goes into it. And yeah, no, I think you run a risk with a movie like this when you are being hip or attempting to be hip or attempting to speak to the culture. But I think they walked a line here and made it kind of more of a time capsule, because I think by the time this movie came out, this sort of like hipster jazz swinger kind of cool was already passe. Like I think they were already kind of making fun of it.
Shel Silverstein had an entire song called "I Had Another Espresso," making fun of the
bebop scene.
The bebop scene. He has an entire album, Inside My Folk Songs. It's all making fun of the hip hop scene, the bebop scene in New York. And this would have been around Ooh, 66. Yeah, so
Okay.
this would have been right around the time where it was starting
And I
to
don't
dwindle.
know if we're thinking of the same thing because I don't know her name, but there is definitely a video of a 1960 like female comedian making fun of jazz
Oh,
and
yeah.
bebop, and it's hilarious. So I'll try to dig that up for y'all. But
Kate
it's
Thompson?
maybe. I when I watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I went back and I looked YouTube
Joan
clips over
Rivers.
everybody who was mentioned and mentioned in it. I think she was mentioned in Marvelous Miss Maisel,
Yeah.
but I'll look it up. Justin, did you watch this as a child?
So this is where it gets interesting because I probably did, but my memory of my childhood is mostly gone. So if I did, I wouldn't know.
Gone
Okay.
at 28?
Yeah.
So young.
And so it's the same thing with I know I watched The Lion King as a kid. At some point, I had to have.
Yeah.
But the only memory I have of watching it was watching it in French class in high school.
Oh, interesting.
You watched The Lion King in French? Interesting.
Yeah. And so and I know I've definitely seen the second one because I fully remember John Goodman's voice being related to the Jungle Book. But I genuinely couldn't tell you how or where. But I was when I asked before I watched the movie, hey, just want to make sure, what year is the one that we're watching? Because
oh, yeah.
I'm seeing 1967, and I don't think John Goodman was performing at that. I don't think he was acting at that point.
No.
So,
But a side note, do yourself a favor and look up young John Goodman if you just want a big slice of man meat. He was a model. People
what does
What?
a
He's
big
the
slice
model?
of man meat mean?
look up, just everybody at home, look up young John Goodman.
It will
right
be
now.
linked in
And,
the description.
Yeah, I think we're
You
gonna.
didn't mention this during Blues Brothers 2000.
Oh no, I guess it never came up. Look him up. He was in some advertisements when he was very young.
He was in a Foot Locker commercial.
Yeah. So yeah, right.
That hair.
That hair.
He had hair?
He had the jawline. He had the
He always had hair. What?
Yeah.
Almost looks
Not
like
bad.
John Denver.
He does look like John Denver.
See it, the dimple.
I hope people at home are looking along because he was a slice. But I don't know. Did you guys see the 2016 the live action heavy
The
air
one
quotes
that
live
printed
action
money.
It was the last film I saw, and then I boycotted the rest of the live action. This one hurt me deeply.
And this is the one that has the good reputation. Critically, critics liked the live action Jungle Book. I didn't get the appeal at all. It looked very fakey to me. It felt like it had all the joy and all the energy kind of sucked out of it, and it was just
Were there
watching a little
songs in
boy.
it?
No.
Yes.
Well,
One,
kind of.
Bare Necessities, and they did it with Bill Murray as
muttering
Baloo,
it.
muttering the song. Mowgli asked, "What are you doing?" "I'm singing a song because this is what bears do," and it was put into the film. And kudos for Terry getting his song back in. It's the only non-Sherman Brothers song of the original movie that was kept from the first production. So great for legacy.
Yeah.
I will give the film a couple of good things. One, it is incredibly hard for any actor to work with CGI for the entire film.
Yeah.
So kudos to the kid actor for doing his best. I don't remember his name, but good for him for trying.
Yeah.
Thing number two, full orchestra for
Sure.
the soundtrack. And George Burns, while he's not always the most sophisticated composer and quoted to have watched only one Indian film for the making of this score, I do think the bass flute solo and clarinet in the opening credits are hauntingly beautiful as a melody. So to have heard that in theaters with a full orchestra revamped with the speakers was beautiful for me.
All right.
So points there. The rest of the film. Christopher Walken.
Wait, Christopher Walken was in this movie?
He was King Louis.
Oh, that's right.
It was a choice. Mowgli picks up a cowbell in the ancient ruins on his way to see him.
You had,
and he tries to sing, "I want to be like you." It does not work.
It's weird, yeah. Like the voice cast is good. Like Scarlett Johansson is Kaa, Idris Elba is Shere Khan.
Oh, that's why you mentioned it.
That's why.
Idris Elba as Shere Khan did work. So some of the voice acting worked. There were a couple of things story-wise that didn't work for me. Most of them are adaptation. Some of them are tone.
Yeah.
In that we start with the law of the jungle, which is part of the book, and the concept that there's the peace rock. When there's a drought, everybody's got to live in peace. So we do see Shere Khan as part of the community. No one likes him, but there's already this threat that if the entire jungle is a danger, we will put this aside because everyone deserves water. Yeah. Everyone deserves to live. And this tone, I thought, great. Okay, we're setting already the darker tone. We're using more elements of the book that weren't established in the previous adaptation. We're seeing Shere Khan a lot sooner to see his threat to the rest of the community. Promising.
Yeah.
And then we got to the end of the film in which there's an entire forest fire.
Yeah.
And Mowgli takes no responsibility whatsoever.
I mean, this is all new to me. Like
for the forest fire,
this movie fell out of my brain. You retained this so much better than I did.
Again, it hurt me. I saw this in theaters and with my friend Karen. At the moment, I thought
I gave some of these a try. I think the one that broke me like fully and finally was Lion King, because
I didn't watch The Lion King because the CGI animals were just a little bit like Uncanny Valley for me.
It looks like dog shit.
That's also the
it's
thing
just
with
so
animation
empty.
that works so well. Mowgli looks as if he lives in the same world in 2D.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for Beauty and the Beast. That's why the live action of Beauty and the Beast scares me. It is, you're right, an uncanny valley. Belle does not belong in the same world with these enchanted objects. It feels fake.
Yeah.
There's something about 2D in which everything is rendered with the same quality and craftsmanship that even though, yes, they are magical, they exist in the same world because there's fluidity of the design.
This weird obsession with making things look realistic, it just kind of baffles me. I think we should be making things look weirder.
I always think it's really... Sorry, go
no,
ahead,
it's something that's very commonly discussed in relation to animation and stuff, and it's that the uncanny valley only happens when it's supposed to look real. But if you have an art style that looks real, that is believable but not realistic, you're not going for photorealism, you're not going for completely accurate, you get that suspension of disbelief that prevents the uncanny valley from happening, because then you're like, oh yeah, I know this isn't a real lion, I know this isn't a real person, this isn't a real cat. The little issues with like the animation and motion and stuff, as long as they're not terrible, kind of get blended in and you don't notice it as much. And that's why that's why I have words in my brain, I don't know the order to put them in.
That's all right.
But basically if you're trying to be photoreal, do it with like real stuff, stuff that unless you have the crack team and you're really going to town on it, pick an art style that isn't photorealism.
The Little Mermaid, the bird that was supposed to be Scuttle, I actually didn't mind the movie, but the Scuttle bird bothered me so much.
I haven't seen what
I haven't seen it either.
They chose a different bird. They chose a bird that dives instead of having a seagull.
I thought you were about to say dive.
No, not a pelican.
They chose a dead bird.
No, and
Buddy Hackett couldn't make it.
And it was just like it was a funky looking, and the crab was very funky looking.
Oh yeah.
Sebastian, I feel like the Uncanny Valley, and that's why I didn't watch the Jungle Book. Not the Jungle Book or the Lion King remake, because it was just like, I don't know,
just defeats the purpose,
and
it's like sucks the kind of joy and the energy out of it.
That's the thing about Pixar, is that when they have art styles and they deviate from them sometimes, but the main point is like throughout Finding Nemo, the you were never like, oh, that doesn't look right. You were like, oh, okay, these are animated fish doing stuff, but still, it was close enough to being real that your mind was like, I'm in this.
This looks like a fish.
Yes.
And I will say, the Jungle Book, they do look like the animals. They do look like the bears. They even brought back, I think his name is Taki, the little jackal, briefly.
Okay.
Who is the sidekick more so to Shere Khan.
Okay.
But with, again, my hangerings are all adaptation. If you're only taking the first part of the book, the arc for Mowgli is he goes back to the man village. That's the end. And in the adaptation, he does not go back to the man village. And that sense of destruction, it's the concept that you're seeing yourself as an adult to take responsibility. If the theme of the Jungle Book is taking responsibility, especially with firearms, as that's the danger, I did not get this from this newer film. It tried to set that tone, and it didn't land. Now, mind you, and mind to the audience, I only saw this film once. I saw it in theaters the year it came out. I've seen a couple of scenes from it hence, and have personally chosen to step back from it for similar reasons, as this is an argument that I know I'm wasting my life.
Fair. We should.
So it's really interesting because I do think this was an argument, and I don't know whether or not it's our generation responding to these new movies, which are ridiculously popular.
Yeah, they're
like these
so
movies
successful.
have made so much money, and part of it is like. Well, and that's the thing is like, is there just, and some of people say there's just not enough programming for children, so that you put out like
Cartoon Saloon, Breadwinner, Secret of the Kells, Wolf Walkers.
Kids get bored watching that stuff. I'm telling
Father's
you.
Dragon, Studio Ghibli.
No, like
there
are great
even
ones
Puss in
like
Boots: The Last Wish.
That was a good movie.
I was impressed.
But it is interesting because you're just like, you do wonder, like, maybe we just don't have the child's eye anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like.
I give myself more credit as a child, though.
I really like the new animation is going in the opposite direction, like Lego Movie, Spider-Man, things like that, where they are removing frames. They're making
the cross-cut like anime.
Yes.
They let you live in it a little more. They let you see things more clearly, and it's much more stylistic and interesting. Let's move on to the game here, because we will go down so many more rabbit holes here with all this. And we do still have a game to talk about. The Jungle Book game, surprisingly, came out all the way in 1994. So, well, actually, no, I was going to say this is the biggest gap between movie and game, but we already talked about Vertigo, which is a massive gap. That's like a
but
60-something year gap. But this one came out in July of 1994.
Can confirm, better than Vertigo.
Yes, developed by Eurocom and published by Virgin Interactive. This was released on Genesis, Super NES, NES, Game Boy, Game Gear, and DOS. Yeah, I mean, again, with the Disney movies, I feel like we're not going to have a whole lot to say about the actual game, because it is more or less what you expect. It's more or less of the quality that you'd expect. I think the interesting thing about this one here is just that it came out at all. Like that this movie, this movie was still popular in the 90s. And mostly what was popular for gamers at this time were video game adaptations of games like Aladdin and The Lion King. They were huge bestsellers. Disney kind of seemed to crack the formula with that. And a lot of people, we'll talk about them, but a lot of people still talk about those games as some of the best game-to-movie adaptations of all, or movie-to-game adaptations of all time. Mm-hmm. Like, they're definitely, like, Aladdin and certainly is in the conversation for that.
They found a formula that works. DuckTales is the same formula.
DuckTales was the same.
This game of run, jump, throw things, avoid the baddies.
Yeah.
Every other level, you have a checkpoint with one of the larger characters.
Yeah.
And you move on.
I mean, this was a time, so I think those games were so popular that they made game versions of both The Jungle Book and Pinocchio, which we're going to get to. There's a game based on from 1995 or 96 based on the 1940
41?
Pinocchio film. So they were trying to bring that back, and I think it's a smart enough idea. I will say, I think this game is perfectly competent. It looks really nice. It's decently fun to play. I would say it did not grab me the way Aladdin or Lion King did, or even the Toy Story game. You know, I've played a lot of these, and this one kind of falls into the cracks for me.
Now, I guess my question is, have you played those more recently?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I know you've played
uh,
some stuff for the podcasts and personal
every
interest,
once in a
but-
while, I'll dust off like Aladdin and like try
Okay.
that out again, and it's
Gotcha.
still pretty solid.
Yeah, because I was
Is it
gonna
that
say
you had a stronger attachment to those films? As a
I
kid?
definitely did, but like I also think this. I don't know. There's feels like there's just something missing in this game. It feels like maybe it's a little too empty, or there's something I can't quite put my finger on that just doesn't make this one stand out for me.
I had a lot of fun playing it, and I
Good.
really liked the animation and the looseness of the animation.
Yeah.
Really felt like Mowgli had a way of like throwing his arms around in the movie
Yeah.
that they captured in the when he does somersaults
mox
and his
boxing.
Yeah, his mox
Yeah,
boxing.
yeah.
And I found that so charming. I
It
found
was.
it incredibly
With
charming.
the frog leg straddle.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah. Yeah, no, I really liked the animation. I think it's bright and colorful. And yeah, everything here works perfectly fine. Maybe it just feels very similar to a lot of other games at this time. Whatever reason, there were a lot of jungle games around this time, right? Like
yeah.
What's the Monkey Island?
Monkey Island.
Yeah.
I played Pitfall a lot when I was a kid. That was like kind of, it was the Genesis updated version of Pitfall. So it was like set in ruins and jungles like this, you know? So there were just a lot of games like this around this time. And this one didn't really do, I don't think it does anything wrong, but it doesn't do anything that makes it
What
particularly
year
stand
was
out.
Lion King?
94.
June
Yeah.
94.
Yeah, yeah.
So when did the Lion King game come out? Same time.
Same time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it would have been around the same time.
So was that before or after this?
I think that was, it would have been around the same time as this. I think maybe a little after.
Okay, I'll say
Because
same
this one
year
kind
at
of
least.
spread out
but-
like from like late. What did I say? I said October, right?
Yeah, Disney was
Yeah.
hitting all the markets this year in '94. Lion King
Oh, it was
raced
July.
around.
Yeah.
We have
Okay.
we
Yeah,
have
there
a
you
new
go.
video game sector. Also in '94, this is Beauty and the Beast on Broadway.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
that's
are
true.
hitting every entertainment market that Disney can cash in on with any of the Renaissance films.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a smart enough idea. I understand it. I mean, it's just what is really the mechanic here that makes this unique. I feel like all of the rest of them have it, and this one also suffers because like in those other games, and I started to compare it to games that we haven't actually played even on the show, but just like for people who have the cultural awareness of those games, you have a variety of levels. Things get like weird. Like in Aladdin, you go inside the lamp, and it's all wacky and cartoonish and crazy. You know, this one you're pretty much just in the jungle. You know,
You're
it
going
doesn't.
through the story beats.
It doesn't deviate
think-
much. Yeah, the movie itself doesn't leave the jungle often, you know, and so you might go to like the ruins or something, or like a different time of day, but
I feel like the later levels, we didn't play them all, but we did watch bits of them all.
Yeah.
I feel like the later levels did a better job of mixing things up, because there was one leading up to King Louis that seemed to be a little more deserty, and there was more like yellow tones and stuff.
yeah.
But the first two levels were, maybe even three, were almost completely identical and interchangeable.
I had such fun playing them. Though.
Yeah,
I feel like the junk, like they didn't like it was deadly, but it wasn't insanely deadly.
Yeah.
It was an achievable game.
Yeah.
I think the main thing about it was that there was no jank.
no,
It
was
played smooth. There was no, especially from games around this time and before, there was a lot of just clunkiness in the games.
Yeah, for sure.
That this absolutely didn't have.
Yeah.
Isn't that a good thing?
It is. No,
Yeah, no,
it
it's
is.
very
That
good.
this did, like, it didn't have a lot that made it pop, but it didn't have any glaring flaws.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, it didn't really. It doesn't do anything particularly interesting, but it also doesn't do anything deadly.
It's a serviceable game.
I thought traveling on the elephant was really fun.
It was cute to travel. Oh yeah, we should mention that we played two very different versions. The Super NES and Genesis versions of this game are quite different. Like they're basically the same game, but the level designs are entirely different, different color animations and everything. So yeah, I don't think the elephant part was in the Super Nintendo one. I think that was only in the Genesis version.
Yeah, I think we may have skipped all of the third level when we looked through. So unless it was in there,
Yeah.
but
Well, and we, so like if you're deciding which version of this to play, like the Genesis version seemed to be a bit of a stronger thing. And I think we were playing it right because we were doing it on a handheld with the volume off, because Genesis music always sounds worse than Super Nintendo music. They had a worse sound processor, so it's always
Unless
just a
you
little
want
shrill.
an 8-bit bare necessities in your head on repeat.
It's pretty cute. It's a
But,
pretty cute little
I do-
composition.
there was also, like they had buttons and they used them. So, like, you had the throw banana and you had the jump on the Genesis version. But then you also had 2 dance buttons.
Yeah.
Because they're
Which
like,
we were missing, for sure.
Which I think is just like a cute little thing of like, look, this controller has 4 buttons.
Yeah.
Well, why not use them?
Yeah, why not? Just do it.
You could use Mowgli's underwear as a parachute.
Yeah, that was very cute.
Those red bottoms, where did he get this cloth?
Yeah.
We never see where he retrieves this cloth.
Yeah, or that animals have this sense of modesty about him. But hey, whatever. I don't.
Yeah,
I do not. I would not rather that he didn't have
Other
it.
than later when Bear, whose name I have forgotten.
Baloo.
When Baloo
You guys
disguises
ever watch
himself.
Baloo is
Tailspin?
blue.
Oh, I watch Tailspin all the time.
I love
Tailspin.
What a
Tailspin.
fucking weird concept
Tailspin.
for a show
Tailspin.
in
Baloo
retrospect.
is a jump pilot. He does a cargo out of Cape Suzette. Shere Khan is a capitalist tycoon business owner. King Louie runs a tiki
What?
bar.
What was
And they
this
all
called?
live the
It's
same town.
Tailspin.
It's in the same world as DuckTales.
And he had such a
it freaking
cute
slaps.
boss/girlfriend. Like,
Yeah.
Oh, Becky?
Yeah.
Oh, Becky.
I can't believe they named her Becky.
He had like this, because they based
And
her
a
off of
line-
Kirstie Alley on Cheers. That
makes so much
They based her
sense.
model around that same character.
Yeah, your
so she was
bumbling
Rebecca.
engineer lion who would eventually be Arwen on Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I don't know if it's the same actor, but certainly the same archetype.
Right.
Additionally,
Yeah. There's the
they're-
kid who's
oh,
wind
God.
surfs behind the planes. He's got
Yes.
this little like hydrofoil skateboard. Like
Yes.
it was the weirdest show, but it
loved
worked,
it.
and it made no sense for the Jungle Book characters to be in that.
But it was absolutely charming. And there was also the Jungle Book Cubbies. The one with Baloo, Shere Khan, Bagheera,
oh, I don't know
and
what
King
this
Louie
is.
as kids.
Is this when they were babies?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Wow.
So
The Jungle Cubs. The Jungle Cubs.
Wow,
This
I've
was
never heard
on.
of this.
Yes, with Jason
Supposedly-
Marson. Marson. Who's Max?
Yeah.
Who's
Yeah,
Max?
yeah.
Okay, it is the right. Who would eventually be Kovu in Lion King 2,
There
Simba's
is-
Pride. A true great movie.
Sorry, go ahead.
There's a reboot in development of that.
Yeah.
For Disney
Tailspin?
Plus.
Oh yeah. I mean, the
But-
rebooted DuckTales was awesome. So yeah.
And
I
they
highly
already did a
recommend that.
crossover episode in DuckTales with Cape Suzette.
Yeah.
They did.
For it, and it was
And
great.
Rescue
I'm still
Rangers,
waiting on
yeah.
the Darkwing Duck reboot, but that's
Yeah.
okay.
Darkwing Duck.
Yeah.
When
These are
there's
all
trouble, they
things
call
that I-
Big W. Darkwing.
I fully missed all of these.
You missed the 90s. What about Chippendale Rescue Rangers?
No.
I was all about that.
And it's been mentioned previously, I think, on this podcast. I was really confused when I was like, wait, what is Chippendales and what is Chippendale?
Yeah.
When you got home from school, what TV shows did you watch?
When I was like Law and Order.
Oh wow.
You got home at 3:15.
And instead of Disney Afternoon, you watched Court Trials.
Well, because we didn't have many TVs to then, like, I didn't have. There was the one, and it was like, what are we gonna do? And technically, me and my sister weren't supposed to be watching TV. We were supposed to be doing our homework in the dining room, and so Law and Order would be on the TV, and we'd be listening to Law and Order.
Okay.
Okay.
That explains
So,
it. We were watching Bears fly cargo, and you were watching murders being solved.
Did
and tried.
did it feed into my eventual paranoia? Maybe.
Could have done. Yeah.
I've watched a lot of SVU, especially was one that was just like, all right, that's a whole different world.
I have still today
Learned some things as a kid.
this
Don
shocks
Carnage.
people. This shocks people. I've still to this day never seen a single frame of Law and Order. I've never watched an episode of Law and Order of any version. So never seen it. It's a big cultural gap for me.
I don't.
I somehow just always missed it.
I feel like. Yeah, that might be better. for
It
you.
might be better.
Yeah.
There's too many episodes.
There's too many episodes, and there's a lot of like shockingly like pro cop stuff. Like
Sure.
in SVU, one of the main detectives for the early seasons tends to get a little rough during his interrogations, and it's always just kind of brushed off like, oh, he's always like that, and you're just like, he just smashed that dude against the wall.
Hey, it was the 90s. It was fine. But we're talking about Law and Order now, so we should probably wrap things up here. That's a sign.
Instead of smashing people against the wall, we could go back to Don Carnage and Sky Pirates.
Here's the thing. I mean, I feel like we're gonna have so many of these Disney episodes. I'm okay that we go a little off topic. I'm great with that.
It's gonna circle back, back to the fan.
But I do want to move on to our rankings because we also have a letter this week, which is very exciting. So,
I was told this existed.
yeah, let's move on to our rankings. Each week we rank the games and movies based on our scale of good movie to good movie, good game, bad movie, bad game, or various combinations in between. I feel like this is a pretty easy good movie, good game. I mean, I think this is kind of a slam dunk across the board, even though I have reservations with this compared to other Disney games of the era. It's still totally solid and very playable. How about y'all?
Yeah, I thought it was a good movie, a fun movie. I thought the game was good. I mean, I think there wasn't really many negatives, and so that definitely puts it over the just being a game category that I use often.
There you go. How about you, Jamin?
I almost had a bear pun. It disappeared.
Oh, is it hibernating?
It's barely good. I can't say that because I think it's a really. I think it's a bare
necessity.
It's a bare necessity. This is a bare necessity for every child to watch.
This is getting grisly. All right, let's call it.
I think it's a good movie and a good game, and I love to be contrary, but I can't. It's a good movie, a good game.
Yeah. You want to come in and have a hot take on it, but it's like these are pretty. These are going to be pretty consistently strong across the board.
Yeah. And it just made me miss the colors of early Disney animation. That's like the vibrancy of the colors. I just it made me feel nostalgic, and also about the bangers Disney used to have.
I think it's especially something interesting now that we're in an era where a large amount of TVs being sold, they're like HDR capable and stuff, where you can have much bigger ranges of colors in productions. And I feel like it's not taken advantage of nearly as much as it should be, especially for animation.
It's true. Yeah, I bring back primary colors. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be drab.
No, it does not.
Or you don't have to use Blu-ray to take rid of the colors. With Cinderella, her dress is silver, but due to the Blu-ray restoration and trying to update it for this new era of technology, many of the colors and the textures of the film are stripped away. So it is nice to see some things still preserved. So serviceable for both. Good game, good movie. If you want something for a good 2 hours or less than of your time, depending on your mobility with video games. I know this is a game that would take me hours only because I'm terrible at jumping onto rocks.
That's fair.
You're not the only one at this table because I'm included as well, and J-Ban famously hates it. So,
but if you got an afternoon, you want to watch something in your background or your kitchen, or have some downtime to play through. This is a great afternoon delight.
And if your kids haven't seen the movie, it's probably a movie to watch.
Absolutely. All right, well, we have a letter this week, and I feel bad. I have not promoted that we have an email that you can send stuff to for a long time.
Somebody found it.
Yeah, cinemarcadepodcast@gmail.com. You can send us emails. We're also on Instagram. You can send us stuff there. We're always happy to read it. This one says, "Hey, gang. You've become one of my favorite weekend listens. Aww. Since the show has developed such a rich backstory over your 20-year history, let's look back. Steve, any thoughts on revisiting the Bond franchise? J-Ban, any thoughts on revisiting Vertigo the game? And Justin, any thoughts on Buckethead?" And for all of us, he asks, "I'm watching Raising Arizona right now. Any idea how to make that into a game?" That is from Vince. Thank you so much, Vince. That's a lovely letter.
Lovely.
I will start us off. So he's asking about revisiting the Bond franchise. For those who don't know who I am, I used to have a podcast called Ultra 64 where we would play every video game in a series. And our Patreon show, which is patreon.com/ultra64pod, you could still find that. We would do deep dives into series, into franchises. So it was almost like the precursor for this show here. And we did do a whole mini series where we played every single James Bond game. And so I will be coming back to those games, many of them, for this show. I'm excited to replay most of them. I think everybody's excited to hear the GoldenEye episode. Anytime I tell anybody the concept of this show, they say, "Oh, so you're going to play GoldenEye."
When I was a child, in the 90s. And my family, we were poor, so we got a lot of our movies from the library.
Yeah.
And one year, all of us children, I believe I was 11, we decided to watch every single Bond movie.
Yeah.
And in every single Bond movie, in a bid for what is now not politically correct, we would all bet how many women that he would sleep with and how many women he'd sleep with would die. I did this when I was 11.
What was the highest count?
A lot.
I think it was like 7-2. But I just and whoever won in my family, we would get a candy bar, a 50-cent candy bar.
I mean,
and my parents knew nothing about this.
Okay.
They knew nothing about this.
They might have been scamming you because you can figure out that formula pretty easily. The first woman he meets, he always sleeps with and she dies. And then the second one is the one. Not always. Sometimes, like, you get World Is Not Enough where it's, well, we'll
he
get into
often
that.
sleeps with a throwaway woman at the beginning.
Yeah.
And the second woman he sleeps with dies.
Yeah, the
has to show
throwaway
that he's a
woman.
rake.
Yes.
Oftentimes they'll show him with the throwaway woman, and she'll be revealed to be the bad guy, but he knew all along, and he nailed her anyway. You know, so like there are very recognizable patterns, especially in those older Bond movies.
We talk about things that I'm so worried about watching. I loved the Bond franchise.
I still love the Bond
so
franchise.
much.
I
And
love
as
some
a
of the
woman,
Bond franchise.
As a woman, I know, like, even as like an 11-year-old, I knew that Bond manhandling these women were inappropriate.
Oh my God, yeah.
Wildly inappropriate.
Well, and it was just like Roger Moore was the most physical. It was just really funny because he's supposed to be the nicest actor to play Bond,
Right.
But
yeah,
just,
he
like,
was
throwing women all over the place. It was, I don't know, like, and so I'm really interested when we do end up starting down.
Oh, me too.
The Bond path.
We're gonna get into all those, and I think the way to approach those, since there are so many of them, and we might break them up by Bond actor.
I think that's a good idea.
That might be the best way to go because
yeah.
there are some for every Bond actor except George Lazenby, I think. So
Which one was Lazenby?
Lazenby was only played it once. It was in 1969 in On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Was that the one with the plane?
They all have planes.
They all have planes.
Yeah.
There was like a little jet plane.
They all have little jet
I know what
planes.
you're thinking of. You're thinking of the little helicopter from Thunderball or the little jet plane from Octopussy.
I think it might be that one.
Okay. Yeah. He does that a lot.
It's been a while, but like 5-6 years ago,
Sorry,
I rewatched
it's You Only
a bunch
Live
of
Twice.
them,
You Only Live Twice, not Thunderball.
Okay.
I am so sorry, everyone. But yeah, no,
Apologize.
We apologize, Vince.
Yes.
to answer the question, Vince, I am excited to get back to those. I think
Oh,
it'll be
and
fun.
how Raising Arizona would be, like, I thought it would be really cute if it was a dating sim.
Oh, I like that pitch. Yeah, seduce a cop. Be more charming. Press B to be more charming.
I haven't seen. Should I see Raising Arizona?
Yes.
God, yes. It's so good.
Nick Cage and Helen Hunter.
Yeah.
No, Holly Hunter.
Holly
yeah.
Hunter.
Yeah.
Together at last. I keep wanting to call her Helen because of Incredibles, which is where I first
Oh, Helen
heard
Parr. Yeah, she's Helen in
Helen Parr.
Incredibles. Yeah.
I love the idea of a dating simulator. I was thinking in line with the Jungle Book as a parenting movie.
Well, and that's the.
The How to Be a Parent.
Yeah.
Napoleon Dynamite mini game on parenting.
Oh my God! Right? You could absolutely do that. I mean, that's the question with that Raising Arizona question is like, are we? Because
Are they ready to be parents? What does it mean to be a parent?
Well, no, I mean just in terms of like thinking up a game, because there are two kind of theories with video game adaptations. It's either is it made currently when the game or the movie is new and so it's on consoles from the 80s, or is it made now as a tribute to that, you know? So you could do the dating sim now. I think back in the day you would do like a Spy Hunter thing where you're like have to pick up diapers and like drive on the road, and like every once in a while John Goodman will come out and yell at you, and then he'll be hot in the 70s and you'll be all confused by it. And yeah,
you have to go through the pipe out of the jail as one of the extra side levels.
You'll slow down a whole podcast to have everybody look at photos of young John Goodman. And like it's, you know, press B to slow down your own podcast. Yeah.
Get lost in the furniture store with the quintet of children.
Yes. So wait, to ask about Vertigo. Are you ever revisiting Vertigo the game?
I might.
Really?
I've thought about it. I really have thought about it, but it just like it would be such a hate play. I was filled with so much hate.
Why were you filled with so much hate?
It is literally
Listen to the episode.
Not yet. Not yet. But that's because I did my thesis on noir, so I've cut Hitchcock cold
So
turkey
it's-
for a while until I
so-
fully recovered.
There's a trend in modern games that it's a kind of a subset of games where it's almost like Quantic Dream does a bunch of them with like Heavy Rain and stuff. But
Yeah.
you play characters. Sometimes you're shifting between different characters, but you basically just like walk around and press buttons to interact with things.
Okay.
And there might
like
be
LA Noire. All right.
Yeah, like LA Noire.
I love that
and
game.
so,
Cool.
Except this game, other than being called Vertigo and having like some minor character traits carry over,
Had
Yeah.
nothing else.
had nothing to do with actual movie Vertigo, other than the guy's a detective and he has vertigo.
That's it.
That's really it.
That's kind of
isn't
it.
that all you
He's not
need?
even a detective. He's an author. Yeah.
Oh right, no,
What?
that's
Yeah.
right. He's a mystery writer.
Or not even an ex-policeman.
And
No.
it has
No.
that evil woman, evil crazy woman trope that
Yeah.
just drove me wildly angry.
Yeah.
I can't. I
That's-
don't know.
it's like-
I don't think you should. Yeah. So I'm just curious about why you're tempted if you hated it so much. You just
Maybe
want
watch a
to-
playthrough.
Do you want to have your mind changed, or you just need the
closure.
resolution?
No, like I do like playing these style of games.
Yeah.
And like I do like playing. I don't know, man. I just there's an inborn curiosity in me that has gotten me into trouble in my life.
Sure. She currently has a bear gnawing on her arm.
And that curiosity makes me kind of want to play Vertigo too, but I'm gonna try to resist it.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
It's on sale on Steam. We'll see.
My favorite bear-related paraphernalia is a bear claw.
Okay, that's not a bad one. All right, I'm putting you on a mental timer right now before I ask about your thoughts on Buckethead, because I feel like I might need to cut you off at the knees here. I've seen your Limp Bizkit rants go on too
What is
long.
Buckethead?
Buckethead is a.
That's how I get this started.
He was a pretty creative guitar. He is a pretty creative guitarist. I'm assuming he's still doing stuff. In my answer to the question is mostly going to be I kind of missed the boat on Buckethead. I remember watching a few videos of him doing like. I don't know if he was quite just jamming or if it was actually like set pieces that he was doing as opposed to like improvisation. But he, similar to how like Tom Morello came in and he had a sound of like, I'm doing things that most people don't do because I think it's fun. And that seemed to be the general gist behind Buckethead. Was like also he wore a bucket on his head.
I think we're missed. Yeah. I think I think
forgot about
you
that
buried
part.
the lead a little
I forgot
bit.
about the
You buried
bucket on the
lead.
head.
He was not born
it
like
was a
John
literal
Buckethead. You know,
Correct.
He wears a KFC branded KFC branded bucket on his
Specifically
head.
KFC.
It is literally
so
a
great.
KFC bucket with a face mask attached to it.
But
Naturally.
I think it's something that like I didn't really get much into, but I think I always appreciate any kind of musician who does something a little more outside of the box, just because they're enjoying it and having fun. Now, sometimes
you could argue
sometimes
he's more
it
in
can
the box.
be bad.
You could argue he's more in
No,
a box
he's in the
than
bucket.
most. That's kind of that's KFC's version of a box.
But like, if you're just doing things that you find fun and are different, as long as you're not hurting anybody, go for it. And if people like
in
it,
my
they'll tag along.
imagination, who I have never heard of this man before, and my only item of reference is Silent Hill 2.
oh sure,
Triangle Head.
Pyramid
Man,
Head. Yeah.
So in my mind,
Similar
this
vibe.
is a guitarist who's wearing a bloody apron.
I would prefer
And a
that.
bucket on his head.
That sounds like Guar or something. Like I would be into that. Like
No,
yeah,
his face painted white.
yeah.
Wears a
he's-
bucket. He was the
Wears a
guitarist
bucket.
for Guns N' Roses for a few
Yeah.
years. I think
It was
Chinese
fucking weird.
Democracy
I feel
was
he's the
guitarist for.
advertisement for steampunk giraffe.
Kinda. Yeah.
That's another solid band to listen to. I think it was the stuff that I heard was fun and interesting, and
So that's a ringing
Props to him.
endorsement for Buckethead, for Vertigo to the game, for James
And
Bond as a concept.
To clarify, Buckethead also didn't do. Buckethead was like a solo
no,
artist who
no,
tagged
your-
along with
your
other
timer
stuff.
has gone
Sorry,
off.
The internal timer has gone
He would
off.
do a song with a group.
Your timer
going
is off,
around.
Justin.
Pencils down. Pencils down.
Okay, fine. All right.
I could feel the Fred Durst rising. I could feel him like coming up. Yeah. So
Now West Borland, I can
oh
talk
my
about.
God, no. All
I
right.
have no context anymore.
That concludes our wild little trip through the jungle, the book of the jungle. Anyway, Hannah, thank you so much for being here and
thanks for
providing your
having me.
expertise. We
This
really
is fun.
appreciate having your experience here. Next week, you are going to hear an episode about Reservoir Dogs, Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs. Let me tell you, this is a episode we already recorded with our friend Chewy. It went wildly off the rails in all the best ways. It's going to be a very entertaining listen, so definitely check that out.
And if, just in case, I'm going to put a little disclaimer when you watch that one. Turn your volume down a notch.
I adjusted the levels
good.
as best as I can, but my Zoom recorder is unhappy with me.
I was watching the clipping signal happen because we were blowing out the mics so consistently.
We
Eventually,
were laughing so hard.
We were having a fantastic time.
we were losing our shit. Well, thank you, everyone. We will see you next week for Reservoir Dogs. A skibidi bop, scooby dab, a dabu doo dabu doo dabu doo dabu doo da.
Stop scatting.
Never. I'm addicted.